one part of this old Aryan invasion theory was that India was conquered by these horse-riding, iron-using civilization that conquered India and so on. Now, as it turns out, iron seems to be an Indian invention, and not even a North Indian invention, but a South Indian invention, because the earliest place where systematic use of iron has been found, I'm not talking about meteorite iron, but of iron made from ores, which has been found anywhere in the world, has been recently found just a couple of years ago in and around Hyderabad. In fact, one of the sites is inside, I think, the campus of Hyderabad University itself. And large numbers of weapons have been found. Also, a little bit earlier, we have found lots of use of iron in the middle and eastern Gangetic plains as well. And the dates are quite fascinating. So by about 2000 BC, there was clearly widespread use of iron in southern, south-central India. And then you see by about, certainly by the 1500 BC, its use in the middle Gangetic plains. Now, these are the earliest known systematic use of iron anywhere in the world. There's nowhere in the world you see systematic use of iron before 2000 BC. Now, that is critical because, first of all, it tells you that if there was a military advantage that anybody had through use of iron, it is the Indians who had it, not some invading army, first of all. Secondly, it's quite interesting is that a couple of hundred years later, you see iron technology pop up in the Middle East related to a group of people called the Mitanni. Now, the Mitanni are found to write treaties with some of the others around them. So the Mitanni treaty is quite interesting because it talks about gods in these treaties which are clearly Vedic Hindu gods like Varuna, Indra, Mitra, and so on. And so you have two things, an Indian technology which clearly is attested a few hundred years earlier in southern India and then seen to move northwards, and you have Indic gods, suggesting that the movement of people during this period was almost certainly outward, possibly refugees from the drying up of the Saraswati.
That would make total sense.
Now, meanwhile, what is going on in India as this technology is moving around? You have the Saraswati River that dries up. Some people, as I mentioned, move westward. But the bulk of the people probably hung around in and around India. Some of them probably moved across, and we do have some evidence of this, moving from the Gujarat area onto the Narmada Valley, and from the Saraswati moving on closer to the hills or eastward into the Gangetic plains. Now, this is actually well attested even in mainstream texts, because there is plenty of archaeology. The new archaeology that is there, however, tells you something that is also very interesting. The idea still is in the mainstream that these people were migrating into the Gangetic plains that were largely empty. In fact, that is not the case. We are now beginning to find sites of civilizations which already existed in the Gangetic plains when these Harappans were moving out into these areas. These were not empty spaces that they were moving into. And many of the places where these sites are being found are still significant sites. And remember, this is happening while you also have this iron technology moving in. So you have this interesting mixing around of people, technologies, possibly even people moving in from the south, and you have these people moving in from the northwest of India into the Gangetic plains. A big churning that happens, genes, technology, ideas, culture, and so on. And my guess is that the Mahabharata that we have comes from possibly this period of churn, probably around somewhere between 1500 and 1000 BC. Now, there are many Indian new authors have used astrological data to give much older dates, but I'm not fully convinced by that. I'm also somewhat skeptical about much younger dates that are there from the 700, 800 BC. I think you're talking about somewhere in the region of 1500 to 1300 BC. It's a rough guess. It seems to fit in with the migrations, etc. It also fits the fact that this is a period where we know there's enormous genetic churning. And this is there in the genetic studies have clearly shown that this was a period where there's enormous genetic churning that is happening on India. So this is roughly the landscape, a sort of Iron Age landscape, which is in transition, that the Mahabharata, possibly the period where possibly these kinds of events took place. We can't really tell whether those events themselves happened, but certainly the background civilization, the people that they describes, possibly lived in that time.